Captain Ava Hayes had always dreamed of exploring the farthest corners of the galaxy. As a lead pilot for Earth's deep space exploration program, she was used to facing unknown challenges. Today, however, she was on the edge of an adventure unlike anything she had ever imagined. While charting an uncharted region near a black hole, Ava's spacecraft suddenly detected a faint distress signal. It was weak, coming from a drifting ship far off in the distance. Most distress signals Ava had encountered were either a glitch or from malfunctioning beacons. But this one was different. There was a strange quality to it, almost like a plea for help. Ava couldn't ignore it. She quickly adjusted her course and maneuvered her ship towards the source of the signal. As she got closer, her sensors began to pick up something truly unusual. The ship was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its sleek, organic design seemed almost alive, glowing with an eerie, pulsing light. The vessel was spinning slowly, its systems clearly failing. She noticed the flickering lights and the sparks flying from the hull. It was in serious trouble. With quick thinking and years of experience, Ava activated her ship's emergency tractor beam. The device locked onto the distressed ship, pulling it toward her with precision. As she struggled to maintain the tractor beam's stability, her ship's alert systems blared. The black hole was pulling them in too. Ava's heart raced. She knew she had moments before both ships would be swallowed by the immense gravitational pull. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but Ava kept her focus. With a deep breath, she executed a risky maneuver, redirecting all available power to the tractor beam's strength, while at the same time, she pushed her own ship's engines to the max. The two vessels jerked forward with sudden speed, just narrowly escaping the black hole's grasp. The tension in the cockpit was almost unbearable. Ava held her breath until she felt the powerful tug of gravity release. She had done it. Once the two ships were safely away, Ava breathed a sigh of relief. She quickly assessed the other ship's condition. There were signs of life aboard, but it seemed like whoever had been on board was now unconscious, or worse. Ava carefully docked her ship next to the stranger's vessel, preparing to board and investigate. Inside, she found the air cold and the silence unsettling. As she entered the main cabin, her eyes scanned the dimly lit space. And then she saw her, an alien woman, lying unconscious on the floor. Her skin shimmered with a silver-blue tint, and her hair seemed to flow as if weightless in the low gravity. Ava's hands trembled as she knelt beside the alien, checking her vitals. To her surprise, the alien stirred, her eyes flickering open, revealing an intelligent but confused gaze. Her voice was faint, but she spoke in a language Ava couldn't understand. The only words that came through were, "You saved me. Now it's my turn, human." Ava blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" she asked softly, not knowing if the alien could hear or understand her. The woman's lips curled into a faint smile before her eyes closed again, as if the effort had drained her completely. Ava didn't know what to think, but she had a feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger than herself. Ava paced nervously around the cockpit of her ship as the strange alien woman lay unconscious in the medical bay. Her mind raced with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? And what did she mean by "now it's my turn, human"? The woman was clearly not from any known species that Earth's explorers had encountered. Her skin shimmered in the dim light, a beautiful, almost otherworldly shade of silver blue. Ava had never seen anything like it. There was an aura of mystery about her, one that seemed to make the air itself feel different, lighter, charged with some unseen force. Ava had already initiated basic medical scans on the alien, but the results were confusing. The readings didn't match any biological data in Earth's records. Her body seemed to be made of complex, yet unknown elements. Ava knew that the technology in her ship was advanced, but this was something beyond her understanding. Despite this, she had to help. It was a matter of duty, but also a matter of curiosity. After hours of careful monitoring, the alien woman finally began to stir. Ava watched closely as her fingers twitched, and then slowly her eyes fluttered open. They were deep violet, filled with intelligence and curiosity. Ava froze for a moment, unsure of what to do next. The alien blinked, her eyes narrowing as if adjusting to the light. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice soft, but filled with an unfamiliar accent. Ava didn't know how to answer. She had no idea what language the woman spoke, but somehow, a small device on the table next to her began to beep. It was an old translator device she had found during her previous explorations. Ava grabbed it and activated it, praying it would work. A soft voice spoke through the device. "You saved me. Why?" The words were broken but clear enough to understand. Ava sighed in relief. The translator was working, and she was able to understand. "I couldn't just leave you there. You were in trouble," Ava replied, her voice kind but cautious. The alien woman looked at her with confusion before giving a weak smile. "Thank you," she said slowly, the words still struggling to come out clearly. "You did not have to help. Why did you?" Ava hesitated, not fully understanding the question, but somehow feeling that it was important. "It's the right thing to do. You were in danger." The alien woman took a deep breath and closed her eyes. For a moment, Ava thought she might fall unconscious again, but instead, the woman's lips parted to speak. "I am Zafira," she said softly, her voice now a little stronger. "I am of the Elar. My species. We are lost." Ava's heart skipped a beat. The Elar? She had never heard of them before. Her mind raced as she processed the words. "What do you mean, lost?" she asked. Zafira seemed to struggle with the right words, her eyes looking distant as she gathered her thoughts. "My people were once powerful. We traveled the stars, explored the galaxy, but we made a mistake, a great mistake. And now, we are no more. I am the last." Ava listened carefully, feeling a deep sadness in Zafira's voice. She could see the weight of the past in the alien woman's eyes, a story of loss and regret. Ava wanted to say something comforting, but she couldn't find the words. Instead, she simply nodded. I don't know how to help," Ava admitted softly, her heart heavy with the realization that Zafira's pain was not something she could easily fix. Zafira smiled, though it was tinged with sorrow. "You have already helped, human. You saved my life. And for that, I owe you everything." Ava's mind buzzed with questions, but one thing was clear. This alien woman, this Zafira, had a history far deeper and more complex than Ava could ever imagine. And for reasons she didn't yet understand, she felt connected to this mysterious being in a way she couldn't explain. The adventure ahead was just beginning, and Ava could sense that it would change everything. As the days passed, Ava continued to care for Zafira aboard her ship. The alien woman, though still weak, was recovering rapidly, her strange biology adapting to the Earth-made medical systems faster than any human could. Ava was in awe of how quickly Zafira seemed to heal, almost as if she were tapping into some hidden energy that Ava couldn't comprehend. One morning, as Ava entered the medical bay to check on Zafira, the alien woman was sitting up, her violet eyes gleaming with an intense focus. She was holding something in her hands, a smooth, crystalline object that seemed to shimmer with a light of its own. "What's that?" Ava asked, her curiosity piqued. Zafira smiled softly, her eyes meeting Ava's. "This is a gift from my people, though they are no more," she said, her voice calm and steady. Ava took a step closer. The crystal in Zafira's hand seemed to hum, almost as if it were alive. "What is it?" she asked again, more urgently now. "This is a sensory amplifier," Zafira explained. "It will allow you to see, hear, and even feel things that are beyond your current abilities. It is a simple gift, but it will open your eyes to the world in a new way." Ava hesitated, unsure of how to react. A gift like this could be powerful, perhaps too powerful, but something in Zafira's gaze reassured her. The alien woman seemed genuinely kind, and there was a deep sense of trust between them, even though they barely knew each other. After a moment, Ava nodded. "All right, I'll try it." Zafira handed the crystal to her. The moment Ava touched it, she felt a strange sensation, a rush of energy flowing through her fingertips, as if the crystal were connecting directly with her nervous system. She gasped, and her senses exploded in a flood of new information. Colors seemed more vivid, the sounds around her sharper, even the feeling of the air against her skin seemed more pronounced. It was as if the universe itself had become clearer, more alive. Ava's mind raced. She could sense the faint electromagnetic pulses coming from the ship's engines, feel the subtle movements of the stars outside the ship, and even hear the faintest hum of energy in the distant black hole. She was overwhelmed by the flood of new sensations, but it was incredible. It was as if she had unlocked a new layer of perception, something she had never imagined possible. Zafira watched her closely, a knowing smile on her face. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "You can now perceive the world as we once did, through more than just the five senses. But remember, this gift is not for power. It is for understanding." Ava nodded, trying to steady her breath as the new sensations slowly started to fade. She could feel her mind racing, processing everything she had just experienced. "This is amazing," she whispered. "But why give me this? I'm just one human. What am I supposed to do with all of this?" Zafira's eyes softened, and she took a slow, deliberate breath. "You saved me. And in doing so, you've shown me that humans are capable of more than I believed. You have the potential to understand, to grow, and to make decisions with wisdom. This gift is just a step toward that. It will help you see the choices before you." Ava felt a surge of determination in her chest. She didn't fully understand what Zafira was trying to teach her, but she knew one thing for sure. This was a journey she couldn't turn back from. She had already crossed a line, and now there was no going back. Whatever awaited them in the unknown reaches of the galaxy, Ava was ready. With Zafira by her side, she felt more prepared than ever to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Zafira's words echoed in her mind. "This is just the beginning." Ava knew she had only scratched the surface of something much bigger. But for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. The days aboard Ava's ship became a blur of learning, discovery, and quiet companionship. As Zafira's strength returned, she began sharing more stories from her past, stories that were both beautiful and tragic. Ava listened intently, eager to understand the alien woman who had become such an unexpected part of her life. One evening, as they sat together in the ship's common area, Zafira began to speak in a soft voice, almost as if speaking to herself. "We were once a great civilization," she said, her eyes distant as she gazed out at the stars beyond the ship's windows. "The Elar. My people traveled the stars, seeking knowledge and understanding. We discovered worlds no one else could imagine, and we created technologies that allowed us to see the universe in ways that still elude others." Ava leaned forward, intrigued. "What happened? If your people were so advanced, why did they disappear?" Zafira's face darkened, and she closed her eyes, as though the memories were too painful to revisit. "We grew arrogant. We thought we could control everything. Time, space, even life itself. We created a device, a machine, to bend the fabric of reality to our will. At first, it worked. It allowed us to manipulate energy, alter time, and see across vast distances, but we didn't understand the consequences. The machine, it broke the balance of the universe." Ava's heart sank. "What do you mean it broke the balance?" Zafira's eyes flickered with sorrow. "The machine tore a hole in the fabric of space-time, a rift. We called it the Shatter. The rift caused the collapse of entire star systems, consumed planets, and created a storm of energy that no one could control. It was like the universe itself was fighting back." Ava was speechless. She couldn't imagine the kind of devastation Zafira was describing. The very idea of a rift in space-time seemed impossible. Yet the look in Zafira's eyes told a different story, a story of loss, guilt, and the weight of a catastrophic mistake. "We tried to fix it," Zafira continued, "but by then it was too late. Many of my people died in the chaos. The Elar civilization fractured, and those of us who survived scattered. We fled across the stars, hiding from the very force we had unleashed. I was one of the last to leave the homeworld before it was consumed by the shatter." Ava's mind raced with questions, but she could feel the depth of Zafira's pain. She didn't want to push too hard. Instead, she spoke gently. "So, you're the last of your kind?" Zafira nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, I have searched for centuries, hoping to find someone who could help me understand what went wrong. But my people are gone. I carry their memories, their knowledge. But it's all too much for one person. That's why I'm here, on this ship. You saved me, human. Maybe you're the one who can help me find redemption." Ava felt the weight of the moment settle around her. She didn't know how she could help, but something in Zafira's words stirred a deep sense of responsibility in her heart. The alien woman was not just a survivor of a broken civilization. She was a keeper of an entire history, a history that could shape the future if only it could be understood. "What can I do?" Ava asked, her voice filled with quiet determination. Zafira met her gaze, her eyes filled with gratitude. "First, we must find the shatter, the rift that destroyed everything. It's the key to understanding what happened and how to stop it from happening again." Ava nodded slowly. She didn't fully understand what they were about to face, but one thing was clear: this was no ordinary journey. This was a mission to unravel the mistakes of an ancient lost civilization and perhaps to save the future of the galaxy itself. Ava sat in the pilot's seat, her fingers flying over the controls as her ship entered the coordinates Zafira had shared. They were heading toward a part of the galaxy that Ava had avoided in her years of exploration, an area marked as unstable and dangerous in Earth's star maps. It was a region filled with distorted gravitational fields and strange energy signatures. Most explorers who ventured too close never returned. Zafira stood beside her, her gaze fixed on the holographic star map hovering above the console. "This is where the shatter first appeared," she said, pointing to a pulsing red dot on the map. Her voice was calm, but heavy with the weight of the past. "The rift should still exist there, though its nature may have changed over time." Ava glanced at her. "What should I expect when we get there? Is it safe to approach?" Zafira hesitated, her violet eyes narrowing as she considered the question. "Safe? No. The shatter is unpredictable. It bends reality in ways your species has likely never encountered. Time, space, even matter itself may behave differently. But if we're careful, we might be able to study it from a distance." Ava nodded, though her stomach churned with unease. The thought of approaching something that could distort reality itself was terrifying, but she also felt a strange sense of excitement. This was the kind of exploration she had dreamed of, a chance to uncover something truly unknown. As they neared the coordinates, the ship's sensors began to react. Alarms beeped softly, and the screens lit up with strange readings. The space ahead seemed wrong. The stars appeared warped, their light twisting in impossible ways. A faint, pulsating glow came into view, growing brighter as the ship drew closer. It was like a tear in the fabric of the universe, a swirling vortex of colors that Ava couldn't name. "That's it," Zafira said quietly, her voice tinged with both awe and dread. "The shatter." Ava stared at the rift, her hands tightening on the controls. "It's incredible," she whispered. The sheer scale of the anomaly was overwhelming. It was as if the universe itself had opened a window into another reality. But there was also a sense of danger, a feeling that they were standing at the edge of something they couldn't fully understand. Zafira moved to the ship's science station, her fingers gliding over the controls with practiced ease. "We'll need to scan it carefully," she said. The shatter emits energy signatures that could destabilize the ship if we get too close. Ava nodded, keeping the ship steady as Zafira worked. The alien woman's focus was intense, her every movement precise. Ava couldn't help but admire her. Despite everything she had been through, Zafira carried herself with a quiet strength that was inspiring. As the scans began to come through, Zafira's expression darkened. "This is worse than I thought," she murmured. "What do you mean?" Ava asked, her heart pounding. Zafira turned to face her, her voice grave. "The shatter is growing. It's spreading, slowly but steadily. If we don't find a way to contain it, it could consume everything in its path, including your home, Earth." Ava's blood ran cold. She had known this mission would be dangerous, but now the stakes felt impossibly high. This wasn't just about understanding the past. It was about protecting the future. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. Zafira looked at her, a flicker of determination in her eyes. "We need to go deeper. To understand the shatter, we must venture closer to its core. There's no other way." Ava took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to turn back now. "Then let's do it," she said. "Whatever it takes." The two women exchanged a silent look of mutual trust. Together, they were about to face the unknown, a journey into the heart of the shatter, where the very fabric of reality was waiting to be unraveled. Ava's grip tightened on the controls as the ship inched closer to the shatter. The rift pulsed and twisted in front of them, its colors shifting in unnatural patterns, like a living thing. She had never seen anything so unsettling, so alien. The entire region of space around them seemed distorted, the stars no longer shining in their usual patterns. It felt like reality itself was bending. Zafira stood beside her, her eyes locked on the readings from the science station. "We are getting closer," she said, her voice calm, though there was a tension beneath it. "Be ready for anything." Ava nodded, though the unease in her stomach was hard to ignore. "What exactly are we looking for once we're inside? How will we know what to do?" "We need to find the core of the rift," Zafira explained. "It's where the damage to space-time is most concentrated. If we can understand its nature, we might be able to reverse the effects, or at least stop it from spreading." Ava's heart raced. The plan seemed simple in theory, but in practice it felt like they were about to step into the unknown. She had always been brave in the face of danger, but this was different. This wasn't just about facing hostile enemies or strange worlds. It was about something far more mysterious and uncontrollable. The ship's warning systems blared, pulling Ava from her thoughts. The closer they got to the rift, the more unstable the space around them became. The ship began to shudder, and strange energy spikes flashed across the dashboard. Ava gritted her teeth and adjusted the ship's controls to compensate, doing her best to keep the vessel steady. "We're in it now," Ava said, her voice steady despite the growing chaos around them. Zafira nodded, her expression unwavering. "We're passing through the outer edge of the rift. The real danger is up ahead." Just as Zafira finished speaking, the ship lurched violently. Ava gasped and fought to regain control as the ship tilted sharply to the side. She quickly corrected, but the whole experience left her shaken. Outside the windows, the universe had become a dizzying swirl of colors and shifting shapes. It was as if they were no longer in normal space. "Hold on," Ava shouted, trying to keep the ship on course as it bucked and rocked. The shaking became more intense, and Ava could feel her body being pulled in all directions. It was like the ship was being torn apart from the inside out. The ship's systems were warning of critical instability. Ava's heart pounded. She knew they couldn't stay here for long, or they would be sucked into the rift's core. "Zafira, what do we do?" Ava asked urgently, her voice tight with panic. "We need to stabilize the ship before it's too late." Zafira responded, moving quickly to the console. Her hands flew over the controls, adjusting energy settings, and recalibrating the ship's engines. The alien woman's fingers worked with the confidence of someone who had faced danger many times before. Ava did her best to assist, trying to keep the ship steady while Zafira worked. The turbulence was intense, but together they managed to maintain control for just a moment longer. Finally, the shaking began to subside. Ava breathed a sigh of relief, though the tension in her chest remained. They had made it through the outer layers of the rift, but what awaited them in the heart of it was still a mystery. Zafira turned to Ava, her face grim. "We're close to the core. It's where the damage to space-time is the most intense. Once we enter, everything will change." Ava met Zafira's gaze, her pulse quickening. They were on the edge of something massive, something that could change the course of history, or destroy it altogether. "This is it," Ava said, her voice steady, but her mind racing. "We have to go forward." Zafira nodded in agreement. There is no turning back now. With a final deep breath, Ava pushed the ship forward into the very heart of the rift, knowing that whatever came next, it would be a journey unlike any other. The ship entered the heart of the shatter, and for a moment, everything went completely silent. Outside the windows, the stars and galaxies had vanished, replaced by a swirling vortex of colors that didn't belong to any known spectrum. The very fabric of space seemed to ripple, twisting and bending in ways Ava couldn't understand. It was like they had crossed into another reality entirely. Ava's hands gripped the controls, her knuckles white. This is insane," she muttered under her breath, unable to tear her eyes away from the view outside. Zafira stood beside her, unshaken, but Ava could see the tension in her posture. The alien woman's violet eyes scanned the readings on the console with incredible focus. "We're inside the core now. The damage is worse than I expected. Time and space are unstable here. It's impossible to predict what will happen next." Ava nodded, her stomach tightening. "What do we do now?" "We need to find the source," Zafira replied. "The rift is a tear, but it was made by something. Something that has been pulling at the very essence of the universe. We need to identify it before it spreads any further." Ava felt a sense of urgency build within her. They had come this far, and now, with the core of the rift in front of them, they were closer than ever to uncovering the truth. But at the same time, the sense of danger was overwhelming. Every second in the heart of the rift felt like a gamble with the very laws of nature. A sudden jolt rocked the ship, throwing Ava off balance. The ship's warning systems screamed with flashing red lights, and the floor seemed to vibrate under her feet. She grabbed the controls and steadied the ship, but the turbulence made it hard to focus. "Zafira," Ava shouted, her voice rising in panic. "What's happening?" Zafira's calm demeanor remained unchanged. "We're encountering a time anomaly," she explained quickly. "The fabric of time here is breaking down. We may experience flashes of the past or future." Ava's heart raced. Time itself. She could hardly wrap her mind around the idea that the rift was doing something to the flow of time. She could feel the ship shaking, the air growing heavier, and for a moment, she thought she saw a flash of a future she didn't recognize. Herself, alone in space, surrounded by nothing but darkness. The vision vanished as quickly as it came, and Ava was left breathless. She blinked, trying to focus on the present. "What do we do?" she asked, struggling to push the unsettling vision from her mind. Zafira was already working quickly at the console. "We have to stabilize the ship's temporal field. If we don't, we could be trapped here, stuck in time, unable to escape." Ava swallowed hard, forcing herself to focus. "How do we stabilize it?" "There should be a control mechanism on the ship's exterior," Zafira said. "We need to access it. I can guide you, but you'll have to go outside." Ava's breath caught in her throat. Going outside in the middle of a collapsing rift. The idea terrified her, but she knew that they had no choice. If they didn't stabilize the ship now, they might never make it out. "All right," Ava said, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. "I'll do it. Just Keep the ship steady." Zafira nodded, her eyes filled with respect. "I'll guide you." Ava put on her spacesuit, her hands trembling slightly as she sealed the helmet. The hatch opened, and the outside of the ship greeted her with a terrifying sight. The rift stretched out before her, a mass of shifting energy and colors, pulling at the ship's surface as if trying to tear it apart. Taking a deep breath, Ava stepped out into the void, tethered to the ship by a safety line. The lack of gravity made her feel weightless, and the space around her seemed more alien than ever. As she moved toward the exterior control panel, the very air seemed to warp, and the stars flickered and changed. Almost there, Zafira's voice came through her earpiece, calm and steady. "Hurry, Ava. Time is breaking down." Ava reached the control panel, her fingers trembling as she began to work. The ship shook once again, and this time she could hear strange whispers in the air, echoes of voices long forgotten. She didn't have much time. With a final adjustment, she hit the button, and for a moment, everything stopped. The ship stabilized, and the turbulence faded away. The rift outside, while still disturbing, no longer felt like it was going to swallow them whole. Ava sighed in relief as she floated back toward the ship. "We did it," she said, her voice breathless but triumphant. Zafira's voice came through the comms again. "Not yet. We still need to find the source, but we've bought ourselves some time." Ava climbed back inside, her heart still pounding in her chest. The real challenge was still ahead, and she knew that whatever they discovered inside the shatter, it would change everything. The ship, now stable once again, drifted deeper into the shatter. The distorted space around them seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, its colors ever shifting, impossible to track. Ava sat at the controls, her eyes scanning the data, but she knew that they were running out of time. The rift was spreading, and the closer they got, the more unpredictable things became. Zafira was focused on the holographic readouts beside her. "We're nearing the source," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "This is where the rift began. The energy readings here are off the scale. We need to approach with extreme caution." Ava nodded, her mind racing. "How will we know when we're close enough to find the cause?" Zafira's gaze met hers. "The source will feel different, like a disturbance in the fabric of reality itself. We won't just see it, we'll feel it." Ava wasn't sure if she liked the sound of that, but she trusted Zafira. The alien woman had proven to be a calm and capable guide through this nightmare. Still, the thought of what they might find inside the rift made Ava's skin crawl. There were too many unknowns. As they continued forward, the ship suddenly lurched again. The outer hull groaned as if being stretched by invisible hands. Ava's fingers flew over the controls as the ship bucked, trying to maintain a straight course. The space around them seemed to twist and writhe, as if alive, responding to their presence. "This is it," Zafira said, her voice tense. "We've reached the center of the disturbance. Brace yourself, Ava." Ava's breath caught in her throat. The ship shuddered again, and then, in an instant, everything outside the windows went dark. The stars, the colors, the entire universe outside the ship seemed to vanish, replaced by an oppressive blackness. It felt like they were trapped in a place where nothing existed. And then a low hum began to vibrate through the ship's walls, a sound so deep and resonant that Ava could feel it in her bones. It was like the very space around them was alive, echoing with power beyond human comprehension. "What is that?" Ava asked, her voice trembling despite her attempts to stay calm. "It's the source," Zafira replied. "It's not just an energy signature. It's a consciousness, something that is feeding on the energy of the rift. We need to identify it quickly." Suddenly, the blackness around them seemed to pulse, and shapes began to form within it. Dark, shifting silhouettes, barely visible but unmistakably there. Ava's heart raced as she gripped the controls tighter, her eyes darting around the ship. She could sense a presence now, something ancient and vast, its influence pressing in from all sides. I can feel it too, Zafira said quietly. It's trying to communicate. Ava's mind raced. Trying to communicate? What do you mean? Before Zafira could answer, the ship jolted forward with alarming force. Ava fought to keep control as the ship was pulled toward the source. The hull creaked under the pressure, and the ship's lights flickered. Outside, the shapes seemed to move closer, surrounding them. This is not good, Zafira said, her voice strained. We're too close. Whatever this entity is, it's becoming aware of us. We've disturbed something ancient. Ava's pulse quickened. They had no idea what they were dealing with, and the more they approached the center, the more she felt like they were crossing a line that should never be crossed. We need to get out of here, Ava said urgently, but as she turned to power the ship around, the energy field surrounding them grew stronger. The ship groaned, and the instruments began to fail one by one. Zafira was working frantically at the console. I can't disengage the ship's systems. It's like the rift is pulling us in. Ava's heart raced. There was no time to think. She needed to act quickly. What if we try to counter the pull with our own energy systems? She suggested. Zafira's eyes flashed with understanding. It might work. If we can channel the ship's power to push against the rift's force, we might be able to break free. Without another word, Zafira began working on the console, tapping rapidly at the controls. Ava quickly followed her lead, adjusting the ship's energy systems to reverse the pull. The tension in the air was unbearable as they struggled to hold on against the force trying to tear them apart. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the ship began to stabilize. The shapes outside faded, and the oppressive darkness began to recede. The low hum in the ship grew quieter, almost to a stop. Ava let out a shaky breath as the ship was slowly freed from the gravitational pull of the rift's core. The rift was still there, but they had managed to escape its grip, for now. We made it, Ava said, her voice barely above a whisper. The ship drifted, silent now, away from the heart of the shatter. The oppressive darkness had receded, but the atmosphere inside the ship was thick with tension. Ava sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the controls in front of her, her mind racing with everything they had just experienced. Zafira stood beside her, equally quiet, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen, as if she was searching for something they hadn't yet seen. For a moment, there was only the hum of the ship's engines and the distant, ever-pulsing light of the rift behind them. We're safe for now, Ava said, her voice a little shaky, but trying to sound confident. But I don't know what we're dealing with here, Zafira. That thing, whatever it was more than just a power source. It felt alive. Zafira nodded slowly. It is alive, and it's ancient. The entity at the center of the rift has been feeding on the energy of the universe for millennia. It's the cause of the shatter. Ava felt a shiver run down her spine. It's feeding on energy. What does that mean? How is it even possible? Zafira looked at Ava, her expression serious. The shatter isn't just a rift in space. It's a tear in the very fabric of existence, caused by this entity's hunger. It consumes energy and distorts space-time. It exists outside the rules of your universe. That's why it feels so alien, so wrong. Ava took a deep breath, trying to make sense of it all. So, if this entity is the source, then we have to stop it before it destroys everything, right? Zafira didn't immediately respond, and that only made Ava more nervous. Instead, Zafira turned toward the science station, typing a few commands into the console. The ship's systems hummed as new data appeared on the screen. The rift is expanding, Zafira finally said, her voice calm but laced with concern. And it's not just pulling in energy from the stars. It's pulling from other dimensions, other timelines. It's growing stronger. Ava's heart skipped a beat. Other dimensions, other timelines. Are you saying that it could destroy not just our universe, but others too? Zafira's gaze was intense. Yes, the entity's power has the potential to collapse the very fabric of reality itself. If we don't stop it, it will consume everything, everywhere. Ava's mind raced, but she couldn't deny the truth in Zafira's words. They were facing something far bigger than just a strange anomaly in space. This entity was a force that could unravel the entire multiverse. We need to stop it, Ava said firmly. But how? I don't even know where to begin. Zafira hesitated, and then spoke in a quiet, almost reluctant voice. There is a way to stop it, but it comes with a choice. Ava looked at her, confused. What do you mean? A choice. Zafira turned, meeting Ava's gaze with a grave expression. To stop the rift, we would have to use the power of the entity itself. There's a device I know of, a weapon that can harness the energy of the shatter and reverse its effects. But to use it, someone must bind themselves to the rift's core, become part of it. They would merge with the entity, and in doing so, take control of its power. Ava's breath caught. You mean, someone has to sacrifice themselves? Zafira nodded slowly. Yes, the power required to stop the rift can only come from within. If you merge with the entity, you can control it long enough to shut it down, but you would be lost in the process. It would change you. Ava stared at her in shock. The weight of the choice hit her like a physical blow. To save everything, she would have to give up everything. She would have to give up her own life, her identity, her very existence as a human being. And if no one does it? Ava asked, her voice barely a whisper. If no one does it, Zafira replied softly, the rift will continue to spread. It will consume everything, not just this universe, but every universe, and there will be no one left to stop it. Ava's heart hammered in her chest. The decision before her felt impossibly heavy. She had always considered herself a fighter, someone who would stand up for what was right. But this was more than she had ever imagined. She thought about Earth, about the people she loved, about the future. Could she really do it? Could she sacrifice herself to save everything? Zafira placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to decide yet. We still have time. But the clock is ticking. Ava stared at the control panel, the weight of the universe pressing down on her. There was no easy answer, no simple way out. The choice she made would change everything. And time was running out. The ship hung in the eerie quiet of the shatter, floating in the darkness, surrounded by the twisted, pulsing energy of the rift. Ava felt the weight of Zafira's words pressing down on her like a physical force. The choice before her was one she never imagined having to make. To save everything, every universe, every life, she would have to sacrifice herself. She couldn't shake the thought. What if I don't do it? What if I let it go and everything, is lost? Ava sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the holographic map of the rift on the console. Zafira stood quietly by her side, watching her, but offering no further words. There was nothing more to say. The decision was hers alone. Ava had always been a fighter, someone who took charge in difficult situations. But this was beyond anything she'd ever faced. She was used to battles, to missions, to fighting for a cause. But this wasn't about fighting. It was about giving up everything. Her life, her future, her very being. Zafira, Ava finally said, breaking the silence, her voice hoarse. What happens to the entity if I merge with it? Will it still be a threat? Zafira's eyes were filled with sadness, but her voice was steady. The entity's power is immense. If you take control, it will no longer be a threat. You would be able to stop the rift from expanding. But you would become part of it. The entity is not a simple creature. It is an ancient force that exists outside of time and space. You will lose yourself in the process. Ava closed her eyes, her mind racing. So, I would never be me again? No, Zafira replied softly. Not in the way you are now. But you would be more than human. You would be a part of something greater. And you would save everyone. Ava swallowed hard. She could feel the pressure in her chest as the weight of the decision grew heavier. The rift was still spreading, its energy continuing to consume space and time. There was no time left for hesitation. She thought of Earth, her home, her people, the life she had left behind. She thought of all the unknowns, all the futures she could never experience. But then she remembered why she had come on this mission in the first place. She had always believed that humanity had something special, something worth fighting for. And if she could save everything, if she could save the future, even at the cost of herself, then maybe it was worth it. Zafira, Ava said, her voice steady now. I'll do it. I'll merge with the entity. Zafira's expression softened, but she said nothing. She didn't need to say anything. Ava knew what she was about to face, and there was no turning back. Ava stood and walked toward the back of the ship, where the device was located, the device that would allow her to bind with the entity and shut down the rift. Her heart pounded as she approached it, her hands trembling slightly. It felt like a dream, like she was about to step into the unknown and never return. She paused for a moment, looking at Zafira, who had followed her. If I don't make it back, tell everyone I didn't regret it. Zafira nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. You're doing the right thing, Ava. You're saving the universe. With a deep breath, Ava activated the device. The ship's systems hummed as the energy field began to form around her. The room grew cold, the air thick with power. The entity's presence in the rift was felt even here, and Ava could feel its ancient power drawing closer. She closed her eyes, focusing on her purpose. She had made the choice. She was going to save everything. The energy surrounded her, enveloping her body and mind. It was like a force greater than anything she had ever known, an infinite, pulsing current that connected her to the very fabric of existence. Ava let go of herself, allowing the power to merge with her, to flow through her. She felt her humanity slip away, but there was no fear. There was only purpose, only the deep, unshakable knowledge that what she was doing was necessary. And then, as the energy reached its peak, the rift began to collapse. The dark shapes surrounding them started to fade. The pull of the rift began to weaken, and the entire universe seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Ava's consciousness stretched out across space and time, her essence merging with the entity's ancient power. She was no longer just human, but something far beyond. And in that moment, as she watched the rift close, she knew she had made the right choice. The universe was safe, and her sacrifice would never be forgotten.